Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's episode of the Nightmares to Miracles podcast. I'm here with Dr. Dave Asomaning, and today we're going to talk about miracle mindsets yet again this month. My name is Brittany New, and I am an entrepreneur, and I'm just kind of the dialogue partner with Dave here, who knows a lot more about me than miracle mindsets. He's done extensive research on the subject, and he's an executive coach. He's going to tell you a little bit more about what he does in a little bit more depth, but I just like to open up the show and just welcome all of you guys for being here, whether you've been listening before or whether it's your first time on the show. We're happy to have you here. So today we're going to be doing a lesson from A Course in Miracles that we've definitely covered in the past. So every episode we cover a different lesson from A Course in Miracles, and today is one of the kind of anchor lessons that we always come back to a lot. It's not the anchor lesson necessarily, but it's one of the ones that we like to bring up again. And so a lot of these lessons directly relate to a theme that we have going on for the year, but this one doesn't relate directly. Our theme for this year is light. And this lesson, it doesn't have the word light in it, but I'm sure that Dave is going to integrate the subject of light into this message, and I can't wait to hear how he does that. So Dave, why don't you introduce yourself and then tell us a little bit more about what you do as an executive coach.
Great, Brittany, thank you so much. Good to be with you again for our May 2025 show. Thank you for that excellent introduction. So kind of you, the nice things you always say about me. I appreciate it, and I receive them all, the blessings that are involved there. So, yeah, you live in the Netherlands, right? Is that okay to say?
Yeah. Sorry, there was a point where I was kind of like between countries, so sometimes I don't say where I am, but now I'm in the Netherlands.
Okay, great. I don't mean to be
No,
blowing you up.
it's okay.
And the reason I say that is because I live in Florida, in the Palm Beach area, about an hour north of West Palm Beach. And I like it here, except for the tornado we had. I've been living here since 2012, more or less, and so I really like it here. It's beautiful, but we had that a brutal tornado in October of 2024. So and a lot of miracle things about that, which I won't digress into today. But yeah, so I work with with leaders, clients who are building things, enterprises and organizations, and people who also obviously have personal lives with their spouses or partners or children, friends. And so I've evolved into executive coaching from being a pastoral psychotherapist. I was trained to help people with their spiritual / psychological journeys towards greater healing. And I did a clinical training in individual psychotherapy, group psychotherapy, and marriage and family psychotherapy. Then I did a Ph.D. in the connection between psychoanalysis and religion, with a focus on, in my case, miracles from Christianity and synchronicity from Carl Jung's framework. So over the years, the reason for that background is that over the years I've migrated out of psychotherapy per se and work more in executive coaching. And there's a story to that, which I'll say for another time. But so now I really have cooked up over the years my own method to help clients get very clear about what their goals are, to help clients undo the subconscious patterns and programmings that could sabotage what they want to accomplish, and then to help clients connect more deeply with the inner divine, what I call the inner GPS or the inner genius. So I've also migrated from leadership in a more general sense, high-level leadership, to working with wealthy clients, high net worth, ultra high net worth clients. Again, stories about all of that, which I can fill the gaps in about over time. But one of, so this is, as an example, somebody that I don't have as a client, but I frequently use as a kind of proxy client in my mind would be Bill Gates, right? It started out as an admiration for what he had done in the computer world and understanding his shadow side, right? Where he's known to be, early in his career, he was very sort of aggressive and uh, almost maybe abusive to people. He used to call people stupid and things like that, and he was just very impatient. With in his leadership style. Uh, and But I always admired the contribution he made to our lives. I mean, when I graduated from college in 1981, my senior thesis was entitled, I was a biology major and a chemistry minor. My thesis was entitled Split Brain Research as it Elucidates the Concept of Mental Unity. And I typed it on a Smith Corona typewriter with erasable paper, erasing as I was going along. Fast forward to 1992, about 10 years later, when I'm starting the Ph.D. program, everything was on Microsoft Word. And I was able to create a 400, 500 page document that I could move around and edit and boil down and blow up and add things to. It was a completely different world because of Microsoft Word. Um, but in any case, Bill Gates, like in more recent times, and I was discussing this with somebody last night, maybe which is why it's on my mind. But I mean, I thought he and his wife Melinda were like just a perfect couple in the CEO world, the tech world, the leadership world. Then one day I was like, oh, they're splitting up. And I was like, what? They're not allowed to do that. They can't do that. Who gave them permission to split? No, just me being my silly self there. But so in any case, I'm saying that either with the earlier part where he was very tantrumy with his workers and teams and so on, or in the more recent times when he was uncoupling, when they were uncoupling, that's the kind of work I like to do with clients at this level, right? Also, super wealthy, and some people might think, oh, it's a conceit that you think you could even work with him. But yeah, okay, we got to have our goals, big, hairy, audacious goals. So, in any case, the latest thing about him, just before I get off of all of that, is that he's pledging now to give all of his $200 billion away, pretty much all of it, with the exception of a little bit for his kids. All of the foundation money, he wants to give it away before he passes away, right? So interesting. There's a lot of information there about the ultra wealthy and what their aspirations are, how they think, but they have difficulties, right? So at a lower financial level, that's who I work with, and with the aspirational element to work with people at the highest levels. All right, so let's see, Brittany, anything you want to say or comment on before we go to our next section of our show today?
Yeah, I didn't know all that stuff about Bill Gates in the sense of him being kind of erratic in the beginning of his career. I only hear like the positive highlights of what he's contributed, but I also wanted to add because I don't know if you said it on this time because you've talked about your ultra high worth niche in the past, and one of the reasons why I think you like working with those people is because of the kind of trickle down effect that they have on the thought and the impact of the rest of the people that work under them. Is that right? Mm-hmm.
And the world too. You're absolutely right. Influence and impact, right? Leadership is, in its simplest definition, is the ability to influence others, to follow one, and then I always add to a positive outcome, right? So, impact, totally correct on that. That's all about. I mean, they influence. Like I gave an example of how granular his impact was on me in a 10-year period in terms of my own productive output, right? So, and that's just in every dimension you can imagine, creating an ecosystem, a computer ecosystem, a digital ecosystem in which all these other apps and things have flourished. Now, he's not the only person, but in terms of a paradigm shift for the whole world, I mean, it was, and again, a lot of people can beef with him, in different ways, like just keyboard warriors, like hate him. He's like the devil. He's trying to like get microchips into everybody to control people, and all of his philanthropies and healthcare stuff is about, and educational stuff is about controlling people so he can make more money. He's got the horns of the devil. Okay, we know all of that, but my point is that with the right billionaire, with the or other high net worth people, if they say they like to do this kind of work, it's just a privilege to work with them, because then you have a different type of influence, which is the miracle mindset influence, which they're embracing of. And I've known a lot of people worked with a lot of people in the high net worth space who are like that. So great point on your. Were you fully self-expressed on that?
Yes, yes, I'm good.
Fantastic. So the next thing that we'll talk about a little bit here is the where am I on my outline here? So miracle, right? This is really about miracle mindset. This show is an adjunct to and a support for the lane I've chosen for my executive coaching work, which is all about miracle mindset. My goal is to support um, people that I specialize in working with, as well as a broader mass audience, a lay audience, for people who are interested in the intersection of achievement in life with miracle mindset, right? So, um, and over time, this has become more and more of a passion for me, not just in academic or intellectual studies. So, when I started the doctoral program and had a really hard in 1992, couldn't pass my German scholarly translation exam. And that thing was kicking my butt all up and down Broadway for a couple of years. I just kept failing it and failing it. It was miracle mindset that helped me finally make the breakthrough when I made the connection between this problem I'm having and passing German, and I've applied it to many different things. And you and I, Brittany, we refer to this as our miracle resume. Where we have a series of milestones of amazing things that have happened to us that might have seemed impossible to achieve without miracle mindset. So for me, a miracle is a solution to a problem that seems impossible to solve. Um, Anything you want to say there before we move on?
Nope, I'm okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I made a note to myself to pause more often, Brittany, to let you
Oh, okay.
chime in. Only if you want to, because
Okay.
sometimes when I've reviewed these, I'm like, Dave, you talk a lot, man. You gotta.
Well, I feel like I would get us a little bit off track if I had too many of those opportunities because I'm always thinking of things that are, remotely related to the
Yeah, well, I
subject.
think it's good for our audience to know that I'm not a mic hog,
Oh, of course,
but
yeah.
and number one, and that number two, you're also not just blowing me off like saying, "Oh, I don't have anything to say." But we both have our different strategic reasons we're doing what we're doing. So I love it, and nobody's complained. But I'm just saying, So, so in this next part, we're looking at our themes for the year, which you already mentioned. This year is light. And I will attempt to show how this lesson, while it doesn't have light, as you mentioned correctly, it doesn't have light in the main heading. It's about seeing more accurately. So we'll get to that in just a moment. But and then there are a few other anchor lessons 41, which really helps us speed up how we experience miracles. It makes a promise, though, if we do these meditation practices, lesson 41 in the Course of Miracles, we can have fast results. Um, but that if even if we don't have fast results, we'll eventually get great results, eventually, using the meditation practice it teaches there. And then lesson 47 is about strength, God's strength, and trusting in the strength of higher power, the divine within. And that I love these lessons because they all give amazing encouragement. 47 helps me with fear. I really have lessened the amount of fear that in my life and thinking fearful thoughts. And so lesson 47 says, promises that if we rely on God's strength inside of us, we will feel peaceful and confident that God through us can accomplish the things that we couldn't on our own. Lesson 48, which is the companion lesson to that right after 47, is explicit. It says there's nothing to fear if we rely on the strength of God. And then finally, in terms of these anchor lessons, lesson 50, um, there's a paraphrase in there: through the love of God within me, I can resolve, or I do resolve, all seeming difficulties without effort and ensure confidence. So for me, I'm carrying these lessons with me through the year, in addition to the thematic lessons we do on these calls. Um, All right. Part D. If you're interested in learning more about the coaching process that I use and have developed over time, there are show notes. Brittany, you've put amazing show notes together about the book Nightmares to Miracles. And then there's a companion course, Nightmares to Miracles. And then there's our newsletter, which is about Nightmares to Miracles. And you've done a beautiful job of putting all of that into the show notes. So thank you so much for that. And that's a great segue then to uh, what I call the section. This section is Miracles with Brittany. And increasingly, it's becoming clear. I love repeating this section. Somebody might say, okay, we understand you and Brittany have had a great journey together. She's helped you a lot, but why do you keep talking about it every time? Uh, and I'm saying the reason we talk about it every time is because, or I talk about it every time and invite Brittany to share about more about who she is that um, there might be people for whom this is the first time they're tapping into one of our shows, and I want them to be able to hear the miracle between Brittany and myself. Um, and then there's also more insights. The more we repeat this, the more insights seem to come along with it in terms of our journey together. And then the more gratitude there is about the journey we've had. And then I feel like the whole thing snowballs. It becomes more powerful. I think it opens up uh, influence in the quantum field, so to speak, where we're getting more miracles around the work that we do. Um, and then this can be applied to other miracles in our lives and in our miracle resumes, the reference I made earlier. The list of things we have as miracles is like, oh, okay, everything is all kind of connected. So, uh, more specifically, Brittany, we met when I was looking for help with some very primitive worksheets I had. And again, I didn't really think they were that bad, but when I saw what you returned to me as improvements, I was like, oh my God, like that's those the things I was putting out were so basic and rudimentary. Um, and then I asked you after the worksheets, so impressed with those, I asked you for help with video modules for my online course, which was also in a very primitive state. And you just made everything, you beautified everything. You had intros and outros for the videos with all kinds of amazing graphics, and it was just incredible. And then um, I repurposed and edited some of the material from the course that you had done to help me explain what the book was to people who were helping me put the book into its final publishable state. And then after all of that, that was in 2022 that all that came to a head. We had been together maybe 4 years, but had worked closely. Um, no, maybe 3 years. I forget the exact timeline, but we had done a lot of work together. I was like, okay, I want to do a podcast next, but I think that a podcast with just me would be very dry and dull. So I would like to have a sidekick, like Johnny Carson had somebody or other, Ed McMahon maybe. Uh, but I was like, yeah, okay, let's let's see who would be a possibility I could talk to. And I was like, Brittany, again, well, here we are migrating from one thing to the next. And I was like, I don't know if she's interested. She might not have the time. It might be outside of her area. But I asked, and you were interested. You said you'd consider it, and you did, and then you agreed, and here we are now, right? So the last thing I want to share, Brittany, about your amazing influence in this whole process is that you'll take, for instance, this raw video off of our YouTube version of the show, you'll edit it, you'll polish it with an intro and an outro, and then you'll post it as an audio podcast to the platform we use for that, and you'll edit it further into a written blog article. So again, we have three different forms of media for people who want to consume our content in different ways. Somebody might just want to look at it and speed read the blog in 2 minutes. Somebody might really want to listen to the audio podcast while they're driving and they don't want to watch anything. And then somebody might really want to watch this. And I've had people say, oh, it's fun to watch the dynamics between you and Brittany. So I'm like, okay. Um, so anyway, there you have it. In something of a nutshell, the journey we've been on are things that are completely outside of my abilities and my wheelhouse, just done miraculously well for the brand, for what we're doing. So, Brittany, over to you for anything you would like to say about your work. And you're a filmmaker, you're a digital brand polisher and fixer, and I mean AI now we're talking about. So, over to you.
Thank you, Dave, for that shout out. I really appreciate it. And I always say that this has been a real privilege to work with you because I work with so many different types of businesses. You are a coach, but I don't work with just coaches either. I work with all kinds of people from tax preparation experts to personal trainers. And so yeah, a lot of it is service-based businesses, but something where I get to learn and I get to develop myself as I learn is a real privilege to consider work. So this has been very educational for me and even socially stimulating. Like I say, I enjoy talking to you every month, and I talk to you more than I talk to some of my close friends, probably just because we really carve out the time to get in an hour a month. So that's quite consistent, I should say. And yeah, it's been a great experience. You're really great to work with, and I'm always recommending you to people when I'm like, oh, you should read this book, Nightmares to Miracles. It's a great one. So I hope that it's getting a lot of people into your book sales. But yeah, thank you for the shout out. And he's going to ask me next where my website is and how people can find me. So I'll just skip to that. And I have a website, which is brittanynew.com. It's my name. And then I have a YouTube channel. You can just search my name, Brittany New, on YouTube. And I have a lot of tutorials and videos on how to do your own media with different tutorials and things like that. And as Dave hinted, I'm getting into a lot more AI type of content now. I've found a lot of interest myself in that, and my clients are also interested. And AI has also streamlined a lot of the ways that I do what we do together. So when I first started turning this into a blog, I think I would have to type word for word what I thought should be in the blog article. But now I have a transcription tool which uses AI to hear what we're saying, so I don't have to do that. And then I can also manipulate the wording and stuff like that using AI. So that's one way that I streamline. But what's on my YouTube channel now is more advanced than that. It's like AI videos using photos. I sent you a sample last month, so you should go to my channel if you're interested in AI. But yeah, I've got interesting things in the pipeline for that for myself and clients, and it's really fun being a kind of Jill of all trades, you could call it, and it's nice to know someone that recognizes that I have all these different digital skills, I guess, and appreciates that.
Yeah, very much. Thank you, Brittany, for all of that. And you can find the link to your primary website in our show notes too. So yeah, thank you for everything you've done, and you've been enormously interactive with me. It's like this is one of the uh, maybe less tangible but very powerful things about you as a dialogue partner. You show up and maybe the mirror to what you said about the conversational pieces, and you feel engaged by what we do, which I'm really grateful for. But you show up and you give your own input, about what you make of all of this, and in some ways you fit. This was not by plan or design, but we just evolved into it. You fit a kind of a representative demographic for us, people who might be interested, might not know a lot about miracle mindset or A Course in Miracles or any of that. And none of it's a hard sell, but you grapple with and wrestle with the content and then give your own independent input, which we almost never customize before the show. We don't talk about it. It's just spontaneously whatever you feel and think about it. So it's been an amazing additional boon. So thank you. Thank you for everything you've brought miraculously to this, So, well, good. All right. So we're going to go to the lesson. By the way, just a quick transition note to the lesson. We've done this. I've mentioned this in the past. When I was at Yale Divinity School, I had a New Testament professor, Lee Keck, and just a giant in New Testament scholarship. And if the class was an hour and a half long, let's say, he would do preliminaries about the Greco-Roman Empire out of which the New Testament came. He would do that for maybe three-quarters of the class. I hope if some of my classmates ever watch this, I hope they don't think I'm lying about it, but it was like a long set of preliminaries, maybe half of the class, if I'm more conservative. But it seemed like almost the whole class was about these preliminaries, the language, the customs, all the stuff that would paint an amazing picture for you about the Greco-Roman world. And then he would reserve a section of each class for the actual scripture. and unpack it and teach us about the scholarship and all the intricate stuff about it. So anyway, this is somewhat modeled after that, right? Long set of preliminaries, which I think give us a very settled platform on which to then share the nuggets of what we're going to share next. Um, so here we go. The lesson is lesson 78, and the headline for this lesson 78 is "Let Miracles Replace All Grievances." Let miracles replace all grievances. And the opening paragraph sets the tone of a few things I want to talk about, and then we'll get into the exercises, which I think are also very powerful in this lesson. So here we go. It says, "Perhaps it is not yet quite clear to you that each decision that you make is one between a grievance and a miracle. Each grievance stands like a dark shield of hate before the miracle it would conceal. And as you raise it up before your eyes, you will not see the miracle beyond. Yet all the while it waits for you in light, but you behold your grievances instead." So a couple of quick things about this. It's like, it's a very binary approach, right, to the way we think. Our thoughts are either miracles on the one hand, or they're grievances on the other hand. Now, the reason we do something like miracle mindset and all of this stuff about the course, A Course in Miracles and so on, is because we're training ourselves to go from grievances being the dominant ways in which our minds are organized to miracles being the dominant way in which our minds are organized. And it takes a lot of uh, practice, right, over time, even though we can get immediate results. Then it talks about dark and light, in terms of darkness and light. So it says that the grievances are a form of darkness that prevent us from seeing the miracles which are in light. Right, so it's a binary choice again. If we want to see miracles, we have to come out of the darkness of our grievances. Um, all right, so then it goes on for a while, the rest of this explaining this and reinforcing the idea that we've got a very binary thing going on here between dark and light, grievances and miracles, right? Then we get to the exercises, which is sort of what I want to jump into next. Fascinating exercise. I love this lesson. I use it a lot for myself and for my clients. And this is the reason why. These exercises are the reasons why, right? So it basically, in a nutshell, asks us to pick somebody that we think of that we have major grievances towards. Now, over the years, I've developed this into a journal that I use to do this exercise with within anytime somebody annoys me or irritates me, or anytime I have a resentment. So I have the people who have challenged me the most. I have a list of those, but I use this all the time now as a form of um, uh, changing grievances to miracles, right? So what specifically does it say to do? It says, we will select one person you have used as target for your grievances and lay the grievances aside and look at that person. Someone perhaps you fear and even hate. Someone you think you love who angered you. Someone you call a friend but whom you see as difficult at times or hard to please, demanding, irritating, or untrue to the ideal that person should accept as theirs according to the role you have set for them, right? Now, this is for me, this is Jesus coaching us, right? This whole Course of Miracles is Jesus. You don't have to believe that. There's a long backstory to that, which you can find a lot of information about. But uh, just in case we're not picking up what Jesus is throwing down here, he says again, um, you know the one to choose. That person's name has crossed your mind already. That person will be the one of whom we ask God's child in them to be shown to you. And then it goes on to say, uh, if in case we weren't clear, that Jesus is very strong in his message about picking somebody who just bugs the living daylights out of us, says, you will attempt to hold this person in your mind, first as you now consider them. You will review their faults, the difficulties you have had with them, the pain they caused you, the neglect, and all the little and larger hurts they gave. You will regard their body as well, with its flaws and better points as well, and you will think of their mistakes and even of their sins, meaning things that you could never forgive them for having done to you, right? All right, so that's the cataloging and the inventorying of all the things that bother us about the person or persons we've picked. And just a couple of guidelines that help me, they might be helpful to you. So I try to do the inventories in my digital journal, which is kind of under lock and key so nobody can stumble into it and discover all the horrible things I might think about them, number one. Number two, I don't really share the list with the people that I've done the inventory about. That's not the purpose of it, right? The purpose is not to share this with the people and make a case against them to kind of denigrate them or attack them or make them the culprit and everything. The whole point actually is to get in touch with all this stuff and then set it aside, right? So uh, the next and last part, very simple, of the exercise is, let me behold my Savior in this one you have appointed as the one for me to ask to lead me to the holy light in which that person stands, that I may join with that person. So this is a request we're making to God within to help us open our eyes beyond this list of intense grievances we have towards people, other people. So there's a little bit more to the lesson, which I'll get to in just a moment. But Brittany, I wanted to pause here and check to see if you have any thoughts, comments. There's a few more things I want to add, but over to you.
Yeah, this lesson, it feels like it's getting into some of the best marriage advice that I received recently because for those of you who don't know, watching, I got married last year and I did it in such a way where my family hadn't quite met my husband before we did that. So we got married abroad. There was a lot of video calls going on, but there were some in-person meetings with him for the first time recently. And so, of course, every time we went to a different relative, they had marriage advice to give, unsolicited, all of it, of course, but welcome, no less, welcome, no less. Even from the divorced relatives, I'll still welcome their advice. They still have something to teach. But the best advice that I think I received was from someone who said that during tough times, she had to pray to God for help to see him the way God sees him. And that was her prayer. So that's what this lesson is reminding me of.
Wow. Well, thank you for
Mm-hmm.
that authenticity and vulnerability.
Preliminaries, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I love it from
Yeah.
your personal story. It's great.
Mm.
Thank you for that, and glad that you're on that part of the journey with your husband, and just lovely. I love it. So thank you for sharing that. So yeah, so excuse me. So a couple of the things, additional things I wanted to share before we get to the final part of the actual lesson itself are the following. Number one, I used to get tripped up by so many different things in this area before the course and early days of the course, where I thought that what all of this meant was, if I was going to see the light in somebody, that I had to actually be able to reconcile with them physically, right? So I would not necessarily seek them out to be reconciled with them. But if they sidled back up to me and wanted to be re-engaged with me for whatever reasons, I would be like, oh yeah, sure, of course. There's an open door here. You can come through at any time. And this was reinforced in some ways by a kind of arrogance about my psychological expertise or my pastoral expertise. But the point I'm landing on here is that I think it was all mostly driven by an egocentric misunderstanding of Jesus is saying, pick up your cross and follow me. Like underneath it was an aspiration to suffer as a martyr, to be falsely accused, mistreated. And that I think that this was part of the underlying driving thing. And so I try to work hard to get in touch with those false motivations, especially at the subconscious level, that disguise, the motivations around why I'm doing what I'm doing, because so much of it can be with regard to this martyr complex at the root. So, and then again, in my method of coaching, it's about can know all the intricacies or a lot of the intricacies about the martyr complex that we're carrying, but it's really about freeing people, myself and my clients, from the martyr complex, because sitting underneath there in the subconscious mind can be this aspiration to really suffer like Christ suffered in some ways, and then disguise it with, oh, I'm a loving person, I'm the better person, I know more, I should give this person 1,000 more chances. If the person slaps you, let them slap you 79 more times, whatever it is. Didn't get the scripture quite right, but so this is a very important point that I'm trying to make about what I think this lesson is saying. I don't think it's saying that we have to be arm in arm with people who have tormented us or that we don't like or that we don't get along with. But it is saying that we should have a vision for coexisting with them in light. So, Brittany, over to you. Anything else you want to say on this? And then I'll say the last thing from the lesson itself, and then we'll get into the application and other things that we usually end with.
Yeah, just summarizing what you said or trying to was that you don't have to necessarily agree or resolve the issue to forgive them simply, right? Okay.
You don't have to let them back. Yeah, that leading you to letting them back into your life. Yes, as if nothing happened, it's all forgotten. Meanwhile, we know that there's a lot of talk about narcissists, and they might come back to do you harm.
Right. Yeah.
At the level of
Absolutely.
form. Yeah.
And some of the most challenging things to forgive, we've talked about really horrible injustices toward women and things like that. You do not want to let those people back into your life. Safety is important. So, yeah.
That's exactly right. That's where we're about to go in just a minute. You are anticipating with your psychic abilities, maybe, where we're going. So here we go. This is the last thing that I love about this lesson. And I use this lesson, as I mentioned, a lot with clients. And I always like to repeat this part. So it says at the end, it says, God thanks you for these quiet times in which you laid your images aside and looked upon the miracle of love the Holy Spirit showed you in their place. The world and heaven join in thanking you, for not one thought of God but must rejoice as you are saved and all the world with you, right? So, what stands out here? Why am I highlighting this? Well, it's saying that God is thanking us for being willing to do this process, see what the darkness is, what the grievances are, and then asking God for help to set those aside so we can see the light in the people we've had the grievances towards. And then it says, the world thanks us. And then it says heaven joins in thanking us too. That's a lot of gratitude coming back to us. Good karma. And then a colleague recently helped me understand that it's because as we do this, we're raising the emancipation of the whole world to a higher level. It's not just of benefit to us individually, but to the whole. It's just a great, it's like, wow, how many places do you see where God is thanking us? Heaven is thanking us, and the whole world is thanking us. I love reminding, it's a great motivation to lean into this even more. All right, so I'm going to go right into this third sort of section. We've looked at the text, we've looked at the exercises. Now we're looking at application. And I'm just going to go right into the headlines because I think this will give us some real texture. So, for instance, piggybacking off of what you were saying, there's the Diddy trial, right? P. Diddy and Cassie. These are the main actors in this movie that we're watching. And it's just such amazing source material for what we're talking about, right? Because again, I'm no expert in the entertainment stuff. People know the facts and details much better. But one of the main sort of arguments that goes back and forth is that P. Diddy is a monster, and he groomed her and coached her and threatened her and emotionally blackmailed Cassie in such a way that she was trapped and couldn't escape. It's like a typical abuse sort of profile. It's not just kinky stuff that they were into, but it was real emotional imprisonment and torture. And then on the other side, people are like, well, she had many opportunities to escape from all of this. and she didn't take them, and she was responding that she really liked these freak offs and she was ready for them at any point. And then people are like, yeah, but if you're being groomed by a very narcissistic, clever abuser, you're going to say very placating things to them, And so the arguments go back and forth. And um, anyway, so I'm not trying to take sides here. When we look at these things from the headlines, we just bring them to what the course refers to as atonement. It's like, okay, there's a whole bunch of things people are citing on different parts of this. We're just bringing it to the divine for healing so that the light behind all of this can supersede the darkness. One last thing is that um, people get even more clear in the demarcation of where they stand. So people are like, yeah, Cassie, we feel for you. We believe you. We've been abused before. Everybody else who's never been in an abusive relationship should just, shut up, just be quiet. And they're like, so they're on that side. And then other people are like, free Diddy, free Diddy. It's like, it's just amazing how differently people think about topics like this. And sometimes, people who say that stuff are just trying to be mischief makers. But in any case, let me pause here, see if you have anything you wanted to chime in with. And then there's a couple of other headlines, and then we'll move towards finishing for today.
Yeah, I have not been following that case or probably any of these headlines very well. But yeah, so I don't have much to add to that. Sorry.
No, no, it's okay. But
I'm aware, but yeah, I'm not
yes, yes,
following.
absolutely. And so the reason for these, right? The reason for these types of examples is that, especially where there's a real duality and a polarity between supporters of one side, detractors on that side, and supporters of the other side, and detractors. The job of the miracle mindset is to not equivocate and do both sidisms. That's not what it is, but to get to a non-dual place, which is a very different place in the whole argument, which is at the end of the day, what I'm really concerned about is divine emancipation from the nightmare of it, which all implies waking up to divine love, and that guides us through. So here are a couple of other headlines. There's a new pope, Pope Leo. This is May 2025, so he's been the new pope for several weeks. A lot of drama around that process and how they select the pope. There's a movie that came out called Conclave, where we saw the inner behind the scenes workings of the politics, and it's just an amazing process. But it's historic because he's an American, Chicago born, but also has Peruvian, I think, Peruvian background somewhere in there, and then he's got, they say, people of color in his lineage from New Orleans and things like that. It's like, it's just a very interesting mix of things. But it felt like with the political landscape in America, like it was a chessboard, and now a whole nother chess piece came on to, bishops and rooks and kings and queens. Is like, okay, we have a president who goes a certain way, and then all of a sudden we had like a bishop show up. He's the Bishop of Rome. That's what the Pope is. He showed up onto the chessboard, and it's like, oh, watch out now. Like, it's a whole different dynamic. And just a few weeks before, Trump had been cosplaying, like through AI, like being the Pope, even putting it on the White House website. Like, he didn't make the images, but some people made them, and the White House picked them up and pretending like he was. And there was a big brouhaha about that. That's so disrespectful to the Catholic Church. Francis, who had just died as the Pope, and it was just a whole big thing. But anyway, now a real Pope, and it'll be interesting to see how he goes. President Trump visited the Middle East. There's a lot of stuff going on about that. Is he, as Kamala said, just so open to flattery and gifts and this $400 million jet that they're using, and to woo him, that they're going to give to him as a kind of Air Force One replacement? Or are they fooling him? Um, is he fooling them? Does he have the upper hand? And then just last night, Biden, former President Biden, has been diagnosed with a very aggressive form of prostate cancer. And so now that's become a whole big political football. How much did people know? Were they covering for him? Was this his even? They say if you know this type of cancer with the kind of treatment he gets for medical care, they would have known about this 5 years ago. So they've been covering it up, not a word about it. So it's being used as a political football in so many different ways. Again, with each of these things, we're just noting what's going on in the world. We can get into the details of the drama of it, the both sidisms of it, the tension, the arguments. Our job is to bring it to atonement, to wake up from whatever the nightmares that's implied. And then the final thing, a little bit more entertainment oriented, is the Mission Impossible franchise with Tom Cruise. That's been all over social media like the last week or so. And I was like, what's going on? What did Tom Cruise do? It's like, okay, they say final episode, and then they ask him, is this really the final one? He says, we don't know. It's like, okay. So, but the thing about that when you read the reviews is that it's people definitely herald him, give him a lot of praise for doing a lot of his own stunts or all of his own stunts, very dangerous things with underwater, with helicopters, with planes, flying the planes. So it's very admirable what he does. And yet there's a sense that unless you're really, really into this franchise, there's a little bit that could be lacking, I guess. Again, I haven't kept up with it. I don't know, but I just like to put increasingly with this segment we do a little bit about entertainment in there. Um, so that's hats off to Tom Cruise. He's an amazing actor. I like him a lot in the Jack Reacher things that he's done. But I'm surprised to see that when people say which famous actor, do you like the least? He ranks very high on that list. People don't like Tom Cruise. I mean, or the people who respond, they'll say Tom Cruise, Tom Cruise, Tom. I'm like, okay, what's that? What's that hate all about? Anyway, I don't know. I don't feel that strongly about it. But the point being that again, we're bringing all of this to atonement. So, um, Brittany, anything you want to add reflect on. You already said ahead of time, you got ahead of this. You were like, yeah, I don't know too much about these headlines today, but just in general, any comments, and then uh, we'll go to the final section for today.
Yeah, I would like to see that movie because I think it's awesome that he does his own stunts, especially at his age. I don't know exactly how old he is. Do you happen to know? He's 60. Yeah, so that's impressive. He's like jumping on, holding on to the edge of a helicopter. I saw that wild. Yeah, I think they're gonna keep making as many movies as people are willing to watch, and I don't buy that he's that disliked because I think when people are asked a question like that, they first have to think of an actor, so they're probably just saying the first famous actor that they don't love. That's probably how he ends up. I don't
No,
know.
no, I like it.
or
I like
or
it.
jealousy, either that or jealousy, which is still a form of admiration.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Backhanded admiration. Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
that's great. I love your insights on that. Yeah, I like his Jack Reacher movies a lot. Those are my favorites, and it's also I like the Equalizer movies with Denzel
Hmm.
Washington a
Yeah, those
lot
were good
too. Yeah,
too.
because it's like just in a realm of fantasy, justice doesn't take a long time like it does seems to do in the real world. It's like or in the world we live in. Of course, would say this is not the real world, but it's another nightmare world. But if people do bad things in Jack Reacher and this other, the Equalizer, there isn't a lot of time before they get their payout, the payback. Now, it's all part of the lesson. Let miracles replace all grievances, right? That's just a fantasy way of doing it. I'm not really wed to people being punished in quite that way. Uh, uh, Whatever God wants, that's my philosophy. So,
You reap what you sow, yeah.
yeah, exactly. I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not in charge really ultimately. So it's whatever God wants is the way it'll go. So well, good. So we're at the end for today, um, and you usually issue a call to action. So let me just hand the mic over to you for however you would like to do that. You always do a great job on that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so this lesson gave us a direct activity that you can do in writing down that person that comes to mind. I don't know if it said to write it down or just to think of, but we can write it down. Yeah, right. Yeah, I think that journaling is a great exercise, a great way to make tangible these lessons that we're practicing. And those of you who are watching this podcast, you want to really get the most out of it and learn. So why not just get a piece of paper and write down that person that comes to mind, and don't share it with them. Just write down the grievances and follow the prompt as it is in lesson 78. This is 78. And you can find the lessons word for word on acim.org, so you can see the instructions there, and then just kind of get through that grievance. And then we use it as an affirmation: let miracles replace all grievances. I come to that one often because, yeah, anytime I'm having interpersonal conflict, I just have like I think, fair paranoia that it's going to block my miracles. So it's like, I can't afford for this grievance to block what's coming to me. I have things to do. I have miracles to attract. So I say it almost on a daily basis whenever I'm feeling a little bit of a grievance in any way. So yeah, I've definitely got someone that comes to mind currently. Unfortunately, it's a client. Very, very rare that this happens, but yeah, sometimes people want to do shady things to recover their funds that they've paid you. That's in the process of being disputed. So dealing with that, but very rare. And I think maybe less than 1% of people are just doing things differently than the rest of us.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
handling things differently.
I love that call to action for us, and again, we hold space for one another to have more miracles, about these.
Yes.
So, looking for a miracle
Absolutely.
breakthrough on that
Yeah,
particular
thank you.
situation
Thank
for
you.
you. Yeah, sure. And I just one quick tie-in before I hand you back the mic to finish out your thoughts on this. So, it might not be obvious unless I connect the dots here that these from the headlines things are also intended to show, uh, again, not to overstate this, but potential types of clients and the types of things that they get into, right? So again, there's a bit of a conceit here, but I probably won't have the Pope as a client, but I could have people at that level or close to that level. Talk about two different presidents on two different parts of the political spectrum. You're talking about a powerful celebrity, P. Diddy, the people around him in his so-called circle of love, maybe Tom Cruise, So my point is that I bring these things in as an illustration of how we practice miracle mindset with things that are going on in the headlines, which I actually have had. In other words, I've had clients, I don't talk about them, but in the headlines that we're dealing with things with which are very topical, like people on this side of the issue, people on that side of the issue. Dave, how should we prepare for this? Let's role play. CNN, I'm going to be out there, I'm going to be here, I'm going to be there. So again, I don't want it to seem like I'm just picking random things for no good reason. It's all tied to the executive coaching around miracle mindset with high profile, wealthy people, successful people. So thanks for letting me get that in. So you can close this out, Brittany, finally. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for listening this month, and I look forward to doing another one next month, Dave. Thanks, everyone, and with that, just go and take inventory of your grievances, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you, Brittany. Excellent closure for us. And thank you to everybody listening. Send in your questions, comments, anything at all. Thank you for being with us. Bye, everyone.
Bye.